I'm Jim Cogan. I'm from the U.S. Department of Agriculture. You're probably wondering why in the world they here. We're not farmers, but thank you. We have a business loan program that fortunately has a change coming to it that will allow us to do ESOPs. I have the same question. I'm not sure about co-ops, but the new regulation that's coming out on this business and industry loan guarantee as of June 1st made a special caveat for ESOPs and for family transfers. We used to have the same problem SBA. If dad sold to the kids, money from the loan couldn't go to the selling entity if that person stayed in the business. And the money also couldn't go to a blood relative. Well, you just couldn't get there from here. So they made the concession in the new regulation for family transfers and for ESOPs. Not sure that it's silent on co-ops. But my program's a lot like Mark's, except we can do larger loans, and unfortunately they have to be rural. So if you're from Cleveland, I'm going to try to be quick so you don't tone me out entirely and fall asleep for the other Mark here. And by the way, before I forget it, we can do nonprofits. I visited a nonprofit hospital this week. Normally we would handle it. We have another program for nonprofits, by the way. If you're in a rural area, they have a different definition of rural. We can't figure that out in USDA, what's rural. But this one was working capital needs, and our other program can't handle working capital. So they sent it over to the business section, and we can do that. So there's always hope that we can get involved. Even if it's a small loan, if it's nonprofit, we'll be glad to take care of that. The other side of that is, in reality, we made a lot of nonprofit loans this year. If you've seen any balance sheets and income statements, we're into nonprofits big time, and I hope that gets over with before we get into liquidations, too.
Would you define rural, please?
Pardon me?
Would you define rural, please?
Rural for this is 50,000 population or less, and outside the urbanized area of a big city. So if you're a 25,000 person subdivision of Cleveland, you're not going to be eligible, or Canton, Akron area. But just because you're in a county that has a town of 45,000 and the county has 110,000 population, you're okay. There's no town of 50,000 there to mess you up.
So and your town has to be outside of a metropolitan area?
Pretty much so. I'll give you a website here that you can plug in an address and it'll tell you yes and no. And I found if Twinsburg kind of amazes me, but that's an area up here that's I would call Cleveland. It's so much industrial in some of those areas that I looked at a business one time that's right in Twinsburg and it's eligible. It's not in a town of 50,000, and there's not more than 100 or 1,000 people per square mile, whatever the U.S. Census puts together with our maps. But we've got a real good way to figure that out.
So,
and go ahead.
So you're talking about population density per square mile?
Yeah.
So Detroit would qualify as rural.
Could be.
No, I'm serious.
Yeah.
But not on the population. If it were smaller, so there were only under 100,000 people, then we might make it.
Detroit's over 50,000, so the incorporated area of Detroit and Cleveland are automatically out, even though it gets thin in some areas, and even though it's industrial. But if it's a suburb of Detroit and it's getting thin, you probably get in a little closer. Oh, yeah, that's probably true. The donut affair, yeah, okay. Our lending is term lending primarily. So for real estate, construction, machinery, and equipment, even refinancing, that's one thing that is a little bit different than a lot of programs. We can do 100% refinancing. We've done that. If in that case, it's going to be from one bank to another. If your current lender wants to loan you $2 million for expansion and they already have $1 million on the books, they could actually do a $3 million loan and refinance themselves. But if X bank wants to take out Y bank that's got 8 little loans and they're all short term and they want to write a longer term loan, give you better cash flow, that's a very popular example that happens all the time. Create and save jobs, must do that. That's our whole goal and purpose. We don't necessarily need to be a loan that can't get a loan elsewhere. You could be the best credit in your bank, and the bank seek our guarantee simply to make a loan bigger than their loan limit, or maybe to go into the secondary market and get you better rates, maybe to make a 20-year loan when the board says we won't loan over 10. There's nothing that has to be a substandard for B&I. It's just, that's what we call this for short, by the way. Business and industry is B&I loans. But we always have a job creation or savings angle. And we're so liberal on that if your company, if you want to come in and borrow $1 million to buy a new piece of machinery that's going to eliminate 10 jobs, which most that's how we meet our productivity today, it would still count as saving jobs, because the other 40 are going to be gone if you don't buy that machine and get yourselves to be profitable enough and efficient enough to compete with the Chinese. So you can imagine that you can probably make a job savings argument on just about any legitimate loan. So it's mostly term. Good news is that we will be able to do revolving lines of credit come June 1st with our new regulation. It does say that the lender has to have a term component to it. Used to be we'd say do the line, we'll give you the receivables and inventory, you do that separately, but that will also be able to be guaranteed. Business acquisitions can be done, and this would be a perfect thing. The owner, for an ESOP, the owners are retiring, there's no second, third generation there to take over. The employees want to go together to buy that. You would be saving that company. You're going to keep those jobs in your community, keep them from going overseas or wherever. And thanks now to that rule change, an ESOP would be a perfect opportunity for us to help you buy. I'll talk about it later, but tangible equity is important to us, but you'd be an existing business, so you'd have a 10% net worth requirement, which is fairly minimal. That would get you at least through our door, and we would hope that you'd be able to find a bank then to go along with that, because this is not direct lending. We're a loan guarantee, so we have to have a bank willing to carry that for us and make that loan. We can even do hotels, motels, new business startups, tourism and recreation. There are a couple things like SBA that we cannot do. Can't do racetracks for some reason, which I think is horses and cars probably. We've never tried to define that. What else? We can't do golf courses. So I don't know if that's just because everybody that likes to play golf thinks they can run one or what, but apparently we've been burned somewhere. So we don't do those two things, and then the gambling and the sex things come into there too. We do shopping centers, though. If you are the investor in your small town and you want to build the office building or build the retail store or whatever it is that somebody else is going to come in and rent, we can actually count the rental jobs. Now, the lease has to be kind of as long as the loan, and there's a lot of requirements. That's a high-risk thing. We don't do that very often, but it is something that we could do. Or if you want to build a building that you're going to occupy 40% of rather than 51%, you might run into some problems with other programs. We don't have a problem with that. We don't do the store units either because they don't really create any jobs. Here's your eligible area definition. Under 50,000 population. Urbanized is just a trick word to say not close to another community. It's kind of like if you drive into town and you think you're in Columbus or Cleveland, and if you're not familiar with it, then we probably can't be within that outer belt. But if this website, and it's kind of chopped off here, but and that is on. I've got a fact sheet. If you really want to look at these, I'll put them on the back. There is that website is on our little fact sheet. You click on business. You accept a disclaimer. It'll give you a chance to put in an address. Put it in an address, including zip code, 9-digit if you got it. It'll come out and say yes or no. If it doesn't know, if it can't find your address, click down to your area since you know where you are. If it's got a yellow background, it's not eligible. If it's got a white background, it is. So a lot of intersections along I-76 or whatever up here, 3 sides of it will be eligible and 1 will not. It's just totally with the census tract. You can't really guess it, so it's worth going in there and check that. Don't hesitate. Our loans are a little bit different than SBA. We say we got a minimum of $200,000. I think we kind of set that last year trying to get a little more business, and then SBA came along through the Stimulus Recovery Act and got their fees waived and their guarantee percentage to 90, so I can't compete. So any loan under $1 million or $1.5 million, we kind of say, you might as well try SBA first, lender. But we'll guarantee 80% up to the $5 million limit, 70% on loans 5 to 10, and 60% over 10 up to the 25 million, which is our maximum now. Except we can go 40 million in some cases with cooperatives. Our average loan is about $2 million. We have a one-time fee of 2% of the guaranteed portion. So if it's $1 million loan, $800,000 of it's guaranteed, $16,000 one-time fee. That's paid by the lender at the time we issue the guarantee. There's no risk, no application fee, no cost up to that point. If you don't get the guarantee, you don't pay any fee. The bank will probably pass that on to you, the customer. They don't have to, but they might. There was a time, there's a secondary market for our guarantees, and same with SBA. Once we issue that piece of paper, it's a government security now. It's got the full faith and credit of the federal government behind it, which used to be worth something. I hope it still is, but it's getting scary with all the debt, isn't it, Bart? But so we're going to pay the holder. That's what we call the person that buys the guarantee. That holder is going to get paid all of their principal and interest, regardless of what happens to the business. If we have to write off, accept an 80% guarantee, we accept 80% of the loss, doesn't affect that piece of paper. So it's like a savings bond. So they sell for a fairly low amount of money. They also sell for fixed rates. If your bank would get a guarantee, maybe you can get a conventional loan, $2 million, fine, we'll give it to you, but we'll give it to you at X plus whatever variable rate or whatever their rules are. They can sell 80%. They can sell that guarantee into the secondary market. Right now, I think a 15-year fixed loan with a 15-year amortization is in the 5 to 5.5. It jumps around a little bit, especially since September. But the idea is this gives the bank a place to go with that 80% money. If they sell it at 5.5, can they turn around and loan it to you at 7? You've got a 7% fixed rate loan, at least 80% of it now, for 15 years. May not look great today, but I'll bet you in 2 years that's going to look like a pretty good idea. So you might want to work with your lender, say, hey, what is it about these guaranteed programs? Can you give me a better deal? We call that a win-win situation because you got a 7% loan. The bank's going to earn about 12-15% on that, depending on what the market spread is. So you both are better off. And we'll even allow them to be variable on the part that is not guaranteed. And then we have that nasty 0.25% annual fee that we tack on there. Unfortunately, they're going to have to pay that. That will either give you a higher interest rate or they'll ask you a couple times a year for that payment, or once a year actually. We collect that once a year. They may pass that on to you. They can collect it monthly, they can collect it once, they can build it into your rate, whatever. But the biggest thing is with the guarantee, you open up that secondary market. The idea is hopefully you get a longer term loan because there's less risk to the bank and you get a better interest rate. Couple of credit criteria. These are probably the biggest two differences between us and SBA, except the fact that we have to be rural. 10% minimum equity, tangibles underlined because you could have a lot of stuff on your asset side that may not be able to be counted. 10% for existing business, 20% for new. So we can even do startups, but it's going to be more cash in the game. But an ESOP purchasing of an existing business would fall into the 10% rate, and that's not a lot. You still have to convince the bank to do that. We cannot count subordinated debt and appraisal surplus to meet this particular rule. We love the appraisal surplus for the next rule, which is collateral. Has to be fully collateralized. But as far as meeting that 10% rule, it's a gap statement, and it has to be able to come down at the bottom and meet that. Collateral on a discounted basis, if you want $1 million loan, the bank wants to make you $1 million loan, we have to have on paper $1 million worth of collateral, allowing 80% for real estate, 70% for equipment, and 60% for receivables and inventory, should we get into that. We normally don't take those, but we're getting into that with the line now. So at least on paper, we got collateral. Collateral doesn't have to be on the same balance sheet. It could be your house. It could be Uncle Fred's farm. It could be assets of another company that you own. So as far as collateral, they can get that from anywhere. Personal guarantees, we're normally looking for those owning over the 20% to personally guarantee the credit. Co-ops, nonprofits, ESOPs, that can be a little different. The more personal guarantees that you got in the game, the better off we are, but especially for nonprofits, we don't always have to have those. For loans for companies better than average, we don't have to have a personal guarantee either. So if you're a very highly rated company or simply doing it to get a better rate, we don't have to have that guarantee. The process is call us, have your lender, or you call us as early as possible in the process so we can help talk about some of our rules, like on an ESOP especially. If we can sit down and help you decide, well, maybe if you've got an LLC that owns a real estate and an operating incorporated, maybe they can be co-borrowers and meet that equity requirement easier than one on its own. That's what we're there for, to help you structure so we don't get caught at the end on one of our little government rules. And that takes basically business plan or whatever you've got, copies of something. You don't have to manufacture anything. We get back with you. If it looks good, we meet with the lender and see your operation, meet with you. So when we go to our loan committee, we can vouch for that, and then we get into the formal application. Process doesn't have to take very long at all. It depends on how well the paperwork is. Our character representation may be a little bit higher. We don't even ask about felonies and misdemeanors, Mark. We're not that sophisticated. But we hope that the bank will trip over those and figure that out before we make the loan. But I did have a guy Tuesday tell me that there have been more loans paid off by character than by management and dollars and cents. You know that's true. If you're a strong moral character, that's worth a lot to us. The big thing here is jobs. You don't have to be ag-related. We are USDA, but the reason that Congress gave us this program was to provide some employment in the rural areas, so every company didn't have to come to Columbus and Cleveland and Akron. No offense to those places, but so that the farmer and the farmer's family had a place to go have a non-farm job, because you really can't make a living off the land totally in most cases. So it's there. It's something to keep in the back of your mind. And if there's any questions or anything on that, grab me afterwards, if not now. I do want to spend a little bit of time on an energy program. I've got the energy czar here, so I've got to talk about energy. We have a grant. Now, what I talked about before was a loan guarantee. You negotiate your rates and your terms with your bank. The last farm bill, 6 years ago, we came up with a new grant and loan program for small businesses and ag producers. So you can either be a farmer or you can be a rural small business. Can't be a nonprofit, can't be a resident. It's somewhat finite as to the eligibility. The application window for this, for the 2009 fiscal year, I hope will open today. I'm not exactly sure. There's a teleconference at 3 o'clock. Maybe we'll know then. This is about the fourth deadline we've had, so they got to make one pretty soon. But this is a 25% grant for the capital cost of an improvement to your business. And you don't see that very often in government. We have a lot of soft cost grants that we have, but if you spend $500,000 or $2 million on a ethanol plant or a biodigester or a biodiesel, you can get a $500,000 grant, reimbursement for buying that equipment. $250,000 is for energy efficiency. If you've got something in your company that is burning up the energy, whether it be electric, gas, whatever, if you can replace it, if you can replace the lighting, that has about a 2-year payback. You can get also a 25% grant, and you can get a whole bunch of other things out of the stimulus bill. Mark will probably talk about. There's other incentives that you can mix with this. So now is the time to be doing that, and we also all know that our energy rates are going to go up. Yes, sir.
Would it be possible to combine the grant with one of the loan programs in order to provide the equity that you would need in order to subsidize to get the loan approved?
Yes, sir. We have under this program our own loan guarantee that can loan another 50%. So you could get 25% grant, you could get 50% loan, you'd have 25% equity needed. We could do some of that with the business and industry loan guarantee if you qualified. There are tax credits, and the state has grants that could be put together that takes that. We found out we can't have two federal grants together, but I think the U.S. Treasury has a new program come out on efficiency that you can get either a grant or you can get tax credits. If you take our grant and their tax credit, they don't compete. They're okay. So there's all kind of things. I've got a slide that will show you an address to get a pretty good summary anyway of at least some of the incentives, and they're coming out of the woodwork, and we can't keep up with them all. But question?
Could this work for a business that wants to sell some kind of energy, whatever, to rural customers and it supports the rural customers purchasing that?
The question was, could it be used for a company selling an energy efficient thing to a rural customer? Yeah, the rural customer could apply. The company producing the highly efficient product could not apply, but they could help every one of their customers. They could tell their customers about it.
Yeah.
So yes, it could be. It could be a windmill. It could be solar.
Why do you have two minimum grants and between 2,500 and
What was that?
why do you have two minimum grants?
To minimum, because the 2,500 is a minimum on the renewable energy, the bigger grant. The 1,500 is on the efficiency. So you could have an efficiency project as small as $6,000 and apply for the grant, or a renewable as small as 10 grand. Any one individual or entity could get $750,000 per year, and you will get a 1099. So it's going to fall down on your income statement and be taxable eventually. Some good news here: the 2008 Farm Bill. Last year, the Farm Bill of 2008. Last year we had 16 million in grants and 200 million in loans available under this program. This year, that's growing to 31 million in grants and 300 million in loans. It will go up some next year. It goes up gradually through the Farm Bill. This is probably one of the better years. I think the word is still trying to get out on this program. I think our activity will be at least triple this year, but I expect next year it could be even greater. So you'll have either a 60 or 90-day window to apply after we get this out. It might be a time to do this. We could do wind projects regardless of the size of your windmill, small, medium, large. Solar is active. We're not the best state in the union for either one of those, but there are places that it works in Ohio, and there are situations that it works. We'd like to help anybody that wants to do any of those. You can even do geothermal. In some cases, that could be renewal. In some cases, this could be efficiency. It kind of depends, but that's an opportunity for you. And then under energy efficiency, it's almost endless what you can do, whether it be freezers and refrigerators, lighting. As I said, that's one of the quickest paybacks. Electric motors, gas boilers, insulation. On the farm side, we did 7 or 8 grain dryer systems last year. A farmer can replace the whole grain dryer system, the holding bin, get a 25% grant. Those cost about $100,000 a crack if they're very big at all, and there have been a lot of farmers get $25,000. But in your industry, just look at your energy bills, and what you got to do to qualify basically is what you pay for energy, or not how much energy did you use, not what you paid for it, because the price could be down in gas, but how much gas did you use last year. Based on an energy audit, how much gas will you use next year? If it's less, you qualify for a grant. Now, it's competitive, so you want to get the best use of the money that you can. So, just because it's less, if it's only 1% less, it's probably not going to pay you nor us to put a grant in there. But you pick the low-hanging fruit first and go for a grant for that. Applicants, eligibility. There's two things, project and applicant. Applicant has to be a farmer, somebody that has over 50% of their income from farm income, or a small rural business as defined by SBA. Now, I said B&I could be the biggest American-owned company there is, and we could do that, and the strongest. Under this program, we bow to Mark's SBA program, and on their website, it's probably either the dollar business you do or the number of employees you have, depending on what kind of an industry, whether or not you'd be eligible. Citizen-owned, and must not have federal debt, judgments, etc., back to the character thing. The project must be to purchase a renewable energy system, such as ethanol, wind, solar, or to purchase the energy efficiency, the parts that will make your operation more efficient. It must be commercially available and replicable. We're not a research thing, so you want to, especially in solar and wind, you can buy them off the shelf just like you buy anything else anymore, so those are fairly easy. But if you're building a biodigester for your food processing waste, we really don't want to be the one to finance the first one of its kind in the world. It may not work, so you'd be wasting your money, and so would we. Technical merit part located in rural areas, and it can't help residents. So if you're a business is coming out of your house, that you're not going to be able to go here. But hopefully you can separate your business and your home energy use.
I apologize for this question. You didn't probably answer right at the very beginning of your presentation. So I just define for me a rural area.
50,000. We did. We had a slide on it. It's on the thing. But 50,000 and outside an urbanized area. So if your community, your incorporated community is less than 50,000 and you're not a suburb of Cleveland or Akron or someplace like that, you're probably eligible. And we have a website where you can type in your address and it'll say yes or no. Good question, though.
Chuck, he did mention a deal in Twinsburg, and so that's right north of you, so maybe there's hope
Yeah,
there.
that's right. There's some sneaky areas in this area that are eligible because they're so highly industrialized, and which is where we operate. That's the kind of business that we do, manufacturing. So there is some eligibility that you might think, well, they wouldn't go there, and we will. So it's worth it to check the map. I'll give you that sheet with that address on it. Here's my time thing. I said second week of April. I knew that was in there somewhere, and we're almost out of that time period, I think. But it'll be out soon, and we hope you'll have 90 days to apply. You need to start the technical requirements now. And the technical requirements on efficiency is an energy audit or an energy assessment. And depending on how big your project is, how complicated that is. But with your application, you have to have the technical thing to show how much power you're going to save or how much energy you're going to save. So be working with that now and call me or someone at my office. We have a list of energy auditors. I'm sure there are a lot more out there than we have. But we'll tell you what you need. If it's a high biodigester or an ethanol plant, do you need a feasibility study? It may be a little late for that if you haven't started. Here's the slide that has great websites. And I didn't know this, but somebody said last week at a conference that you better spell the Desire USA correctly or you may get something else. Maybe not a .org, but I wouldn't know anything about that. I just heard that. But that has a map. You can get federal incentives, state incentives. You can click on Ohio, and it'll break it down by uses, and you need to go there and get some things off of that site if you're doing any energy stuff at all. I think, and it's a whole lot better than it was last year. For our particular program, this farmenergy.org will have the application forms, all the new regs. It's really good. It's better than ours. Well, ours has been shut down because we had one farm bill, but it was the old farm bill, so it's been taken down. I hope it will be rebuilt now as soon as the announcement comes out, but it may not be as good as farmenergy.org, frankly. And the bottom one is our Iowa office. They are really sharp. They've done a great job of putting templates and maps, and do you want a grant? You click here and you click down there, and it's a big help. The only problem with it says send the application to Iowa. Change that to send it to our office here in Columbus, Ohio. So it's the only thing you got to watch. But those are 3 good websites, and I think that's about it. I'll leave that up there. And the next one is my staff. I've got some things on the energy program and our business loan that I'll lay back here on the table so that you can pick one out on your way out if you're interested.